Next on KQED Newsroom.
If you meet the criteria, you can come out of the shadows and get right with the law.
President Obama goes it alone on immigration reform. How will his executive order affect California's undocumented immigrants? University of California President Janet Napolitano defends tuition hikes amid objections from students and Governor Brown.
This is the premier research university in the world, and you can only cut faculty and research, et cetera, so far and keep that reputation.
The first Republican to win a Bay Area legislative seat in 8 years, Catherine Baker, lays out her priorities. During her tenure as Homeland Security Secretary, Janet Napolitano introduced the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy. It's also known as DACA. Now, as President Obama takes executive action to expand that policy, up to 5 million undocumented immigrants could qualify for protection from deportation. The move could have wide-ranging impact in California, home to nearly 1/4 of the nation's undocumented immigrants. 22% of them have been living in this country for at least 2 decades, according to the Migration Policy Institute. And most have been here for more than 5 years. Joining me now for analysis are Ric Oberlink, spokesperson for Californians for Population Stabilization; Manuel Martinez, a San Francisco State University student with deferred action status; and Bill Hing, professor of law at the University of San Francisco. Welcome to you all. Bill, let's begin with you. How big a change is this for the millions of undocumented immigrants who have been living long-term in California?
Well, it's a huge change, obviously, because it provides them with an opportunity to come out of the shadows and work. And it's something to be celebrated. They've lived and worked here for years. They're hardworking people that are trying to feed their families. And in my opinion, it's too bad that the president didn't go broader. But it's a step, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
Ric Oberlink, I assume your reaction is probably going to be quite different.
It's wrong on policy, it's wrong on procedure. We don't think Obama had the legal authority to do this. It's a breach of what should be going to the congressional branch of the legislative branch. And beyond that, it's just wrong, even if the Congress had passed the Amnesty Act, the Senate bill. The first way you want to deal with a problem is not to make it worse. And we know that previous amnesties have made the problems of illegal immigration worse. It happened in 1986. Congress passed a law, gave amnesty to 3 million, and now we have 12 million in the country illegally. So he should prepare us for 25 years down the road, and we have 50 million.
So what will your group do about this? Already there's talk about legal challenges. What do you think your group or the Republicans should do about this?
Well, our group won't be making legal challenges, but it appears that the Republicans might well do this. And so I wish them luck in trying to stop it. It's very complicated, but this is very different from what previous presidents have done, contrary to what has been said. The 1986 amnesty was passed by Congress, and then later Reagan made some adjustments around the edges of it. And the same thing with George H.W. Bush made some small changes.
He allowed right. 1.5 million undocumented spouses
but we're
and
talking
children
about
of immigrants to be legal.
Right, but 5 million work permits. I mean, that's a huge number. We're talking about the entire working age population of Ireland and Costa Rica together getting work permits. And interestingly enough, Obama did not mention the words work permits or work authorization in his speech. You could sit there and watch the speech and not realize that we're talking about green cards and work permits for lots and lots of people. And that affects American workers.
Bill, you're shaking your head when you said green cards.
We're not talking about green cards.
I got that wrong, not green cards,
right,
but work permits.
But the thing is that these numbers are not as staggering as they sound, actually, relative to the entire population, the workforce. It's a small group. And the fact is that probably, I'm guessing that probably less than half of the 5 million that are estimated to be covered are going to come forward, because there's going to be fear, there's going to be documentation problems, et cetera. And in fact, presidents have been acting in this manner for the last 50 years. I was around for IRCA as well. I think it worked very well for those 3 million people. The problem, Rick, wasn't so much that that we weren't prepared for the future. The problem was that we had too strict of a cutoff. If it had been a more generous legalization program, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Speaking of stepping forward, hang on to your thoughts because I do want to bring Manuel into this conversation. Manuel Martinez, you're in this country under the DACA program, which grants temporary deportation reprieves to children to undocumented immigrants who were brought here as children by their parents. You came here at 1.5 years old. And when DACA came into place, how did it change your life?
Just from DACA, coming into place, my mom, she was very, very happy that something finally had been done and something had happened. And just going through the whole phase, there was this overlying sense of fear that, do I actually want to get fingerprinted? Do I want to, give the government that considers me an illegal alien, do I want to give them all my documentation and everything on me? Because what if this bill, or this, I'm sorry, not bill, what if this action is taken away, now they have everything on me and they can deport me the very next day. And that was something that I was very scared of. And I think it's not just me, there was, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, kids in my situation that were also, going through the exact same thing that I was. And I remember in specific going towards the I believe it was the USCIS building in Oakland, and it was near the airport, and just knowing that something, it wasn't knowing, it was not knowing what the future could hold, or not knowing where this was going to lead to.
But you did it, and now you're a student. You've gotten financial aid. You were able to get a job. You work at Home Depot.
Yeah.
You were telling me, and when President Obama took this executive action and announced it last night, what was your reaction and the reaction from your parents who are here illegally?
Yes. So when it happened last night, I was still at school, and I was in a completely empty classroom, and I was studying, and I took a break, and I completely forgot about it, and I pulled it up on my phone, and I watched the highlights of it. And earlier that day on bar, I was talking with someone, and they asked me what I wanted, from this, and I told them number one was something for my parents, because I had just recently gotten my driver's license, and having my license, having a legal job, and having protection from deportation, it made me feel American.
Will your parents now qualify? Will they apply to stay in this country under the executive action?
Yes, they will. Okay. When I first heard President Obama say that my parents and millions of other parents would have protection under this, it felt like someone had taken off that lead vest that they put on you when you get X-rays at the dentist.
If I may,
yes.
I'm happy for Manuel and his parents who are going to be eligible, but my understanding is they're eligible because you have a U.S. citizen sibling.
Yes.
There are others, parents of DACAs, who don't have that or not in that situation and that are not covered, and that's a disappointment because there is going to be a resulting family situation of separation for many of these families.
But remember, the 1986 amnesty was supposed to be a grand compromise. We'll have a one-time only amnesty. It's throughout the congressional record, and there's going to be enforcement, so we won't need it again. And look what happened. We're back, and we're in a worse situation than before. And again, 5 million work permits. There are 18 million unemployed or underemployed American workers looking for jobs. It's a huge number to talk about those type of work permits.
But this won't change anything, right? Because the reality is that, in terms of the numbers you're talking about, the reality is that these are people already in this country already holding jobs in construction, in hospitality,
some of them are working,
in manufacturing.
Some of them are working, some of them are not. But with work permits, they'll be able to get better jobs, and this will increase the wage depression, the stagnation that we've seen for years.
How can it cause a wage depression if they're going to get better jobs and their wages are going to increase? In fact, it's going to make jobs more attractive to all people in the United States.
For those who are unemployed.
That are working class workers in the United States, and it's not just working class.
For the unemployed and underemployed, you're creating a larger labor pool and depression on wages. And that's one of the reasons we've seen stagnation over the last several years.
The problem with an economic view of that nature is it ignores how jobs are created. Jobs are created by spending. And when there are more people working who have more money in their pockets, they spend more, and that creates jobs. And in terms of the Grand Compromise in 1986, the problem was that there was not adequate visa reform as well that would have accommodated future immigration to the United States. And frankly, that's something that needs to be addressed, and I hope that Congress comes together to address this issue as well as visa reform.
In the short time we have left, Rick, I want to ask you this. Do you think comprehensive immigration reform is needed? And is that even possible at this point with the Republican-led Congress coming in January? Is that even possible in the near future, or is the well too poisoned now?
I think it is too poisoned. I think beyond that, we don't need another comprehensive package that includes amnesty. We need to enforce the laws that we have now. Once border apprehensions are up again the last 3 years in a row, so illegal immigration is increasing. Once we've taken care of that problem, then we can talk about the loose ends of dealing with people who've been here for a long time, the dreamers and so on. Not until then.
All right, Rick, we will have to give you the last word on that. We're out of time, but thank you all for joining us. Bill Hing with the University of San Francisco, Ric Oberlink with Californians for Population Study Stabilization, and Manuel Martinez, a student at San Francisco State University.